Are you ready to learn about the property market? Then you're in the right place. This is Everything Property by Pivotal Homes, where we connect Australia's best developers, agents, home buyer specialists, wealth creation experts, and property advisors to the people of Australia. Broadcasted from Whitehorse Studios on the Gold Coast. And now, here are your hosts, Hayden Ashton and Tom Egan.
And viewers right across Australia, welcome to Everything Property by Pivotal Homes, where we connect Australia's best developers, agents, home buyer specialists, wealth creation experts, and property advisors to the people of Australia. Today's guest is one that needs no introduction, but I will do him the honour nonetheless. He is the director and founder of Corbwood Associates. He's been named in the top 40 under 40 entrepreneurs for 2016, 17, 18 and 19. Named in the top 100 young entrepreneurs in Australia in 2018 and 19, has worked alongside the likes of Grant Cardone, Jordan Belfort, Harry Singer and Mark Boris. Him and his team specialise in assisting clients navigate the Australian residential property market effectively by using their years of combined experience. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Jack Corbett. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, and look, for those watching, you'll see a new face as well. We've got Joseph Banana, who's a business development manager at Pivotal Homes alongside us. And the reason, Jack, that we thought we'd invite Joey, he's a massive fan. He's been following your journey for a couple of years, so we thought we'd bring him along and
jumped at the chance.
Now, mate, it's really, really exciting to have you on. We're really stoked, and I think the people at home are going to really love your story, your personal journey to where you are, what you've achieved so far at such a young age, and also what you're doing now in terms of assisting people realise and map out, I suppose, a plan to secure their financial futures. Absolutely. But before we get into that, because there's so much stuff to talk about in relation to property right now in such a changing, evolving market, I think I always like to provide the viewers and listeners some context as to your personal journey, where you came from to get to here and what you're up to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I definitely didn't have the traditional route to success. I guess was single parent raised by my Irish mother. My family lineage actually runs back through Austria. My grandmother was Austrian. Mm-hmm. She fled Vienna in 1941, obviously mid-Second World War. My great-grandfather was a Polish man that had fought alongside the Nazis in the First World War, so was given tip-off and rights to passage to move his family to North Africa. So my grandmother was schooled in Algeria and then Morocco before moving to Ireland as a teenager. Mm-hmm. So I always thought I was Irish until we dug a little bit deeper and actually realised that apart from the fact that my mother was born there, there's actually nothing about my heritage that is Irish.
Right.
But I grew up in the second largest city in England called Birmingham. Right. For anyone who has never been there before, don't waste your time investing in property. Stop looking there.
Move that a bit closer.
But I guess my biggest challenge was the fact that at a young age I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is a mild form of autism, which meant that my concentration levels were very low. And for major periods of my schooling years, I was not a great student. Right. I felt like school was a lot of fun, but lessons got in the way of it. So I was politely asked to leave school. I guess you'd call it expelled over here at the age of 14. And then decided to start my own business. At that point, I'm one of 6 kids. My mother was already working 3 jobs. She was a cleaner in the morning. She worked in a retail store in the afternoon and McDonald's in an evening. She was working an average of about 70 to 75 hours per week, which where I probably inherited a lot of that. Roll your sleeves up, get your hands dirty, go and chase what it is that you're looking for in life. But I started a confectionery business. So there was obviously a well-known chef, Jamie Oliver, who brought a petition into the UK. No products that were high in saturated fat or sugar could be sold inside public school institutions anymore. And there was uproar.
Yeah, right.
That's when I first began to understand, my first insight to economics. This is how supply and demand works.
Yeah,
there's a demand for chips and chocolates and lollies and fizzy drinks and biscuits, but there's no supply of those. So fortunately for me, I say my grandmother, I've never met my biological grandparents, but the person that I have looked up to and who took that role, I guess, in my life, owned the local pub. So she was able to go to wholesale sellers and buy products in mass at below a general retail price.
Right.
So I was buying them probably 30% under retail price, selling them inside or at the gates of the major schools in my city at probably 30% above retail price. And before my 15th birthday, I had a $250,000 business.
Wow.
I was now earning more money than all 5 of my siblings and my mother put together.
Wow.
And quickly realised that maybe school isn't for everybody. Ran that business till I was 18, moved to Australia 25 days after my 18th birthday. Started a solar power company, built that to $1 million a week business within 2.5 years. Sold it with 45 staff, and then went into the software white labeling space. Did the same again, 2.5 years scale up, got us to about a $15 million business, 35 staff, sold. Started ISR training, grew it to 20 plus staff, sold, and now I'm inside. I finally understand I found my passion. My passion is in wealth creation. Passion is in financial services. My passion is in property. And to be able to wake up every morning with that fire inside the belly to go and represent the industry that I'm now a part of, this is something I see myself doing indefinitely and forever.
And it's funny, like obviously a lot of adversity, like you mentioned in your earlier years, and adversity or pressure, it either does two things. One of my mentors used to say it either makes rubble.
Yes.
Or if you get it right, it makes diamonds.
For sure.
You know, so to be able to come from it just goes to show that regardless of your upbringing or where you came from, you can turn it around and really get ahead if you have the desire to.
Definitely can, definitely. And I think a lot of people hold on to them as excuses or anchors, right? Like a lot of people won't invest in a property because they'll say, but I don't know if my job's secure. I don't think I have enough deposit. I don't want to have the appointment to find out if I could because I'm scared you're going to tell me that I can't. So I'd rather decide not to for myself than be told I can't by somebody else because it disempowers me. But for me, yes, I know my father went to prison and has done multiple times. I did learn at 14 years of age that my mother, I'm a massive mummy's boy. The only person I cared about in the world is stage 3 terminal with cancer. My family did go bankrupt at 13 because my father left. He was the only, at the time, primary breadwinner. My mum was running up credit debt she couldn't service, and we went bankrupt. You know? So being kicked out of school, growing up on one of the toughest housing commissions in the UK, not having a relationship with my father and knowing he's a criminal, all these types of things, you're right, they make or they break you. For me, I kind of thought, well, it can't get worse than this.
Yeah, that's right,
I can't go down from here. So what do I have to lose? And then my mum always used to just say to me, better to have tried and failed than never to have tried at all.
You know, what a powerful...
Yeah, that stuck with me. So I tried. And I've, touch wood, by the grace of God, I am one of the luckiest human beings in the world. I fall in shit and come out smelling of roses.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, mate.
And long may that continue.
And so, mate, you've just quickly touched on some of your successes to date. So at the age of 15, you've got a $250,000 business, and then you've gone on to have amazing success via 3 or 4 other ventures.
Yes.
So we said briefly off on air, what you do is not out of a need or a requirement to make an income. It must be a lot of a passion-based project, and actually seeing the results of these everyday mum and dad or these investors who may not have a property or may not have invested before, but actually seeing them on their way to I suppose a prosperous future.
Absolutely.
Is what gives you the passion to get out of bed every morning.
Especially to think that you're helping people with whom would otherwise avoid the opportunity, right? We created a complimentary financial advice business where obviously many people will charge for their advice up front, their professional services fee, which I completely respect. But when I qualified in the game of finance, I said, I'm not going to help rich people get richer. Yep. That's not my intention. I want to help working class, everyday, blue-collar people like the family I grew up in and the area that I grew up in get some level of financial literacy and affluency. And at that point now, whilst you can take the horse to water, you can't make it drink, but to watch customers that I've had now over 4 years that have just invested in their 3rd property that are now asset millionaires who previously before meeting me wouldn't have had more than $1,000 savings in their life. There's reward in that. And I definitely think you reach a point where, and please don't take this as any level of ego, I know who I am, where I'm from, and I'm very grounded in that. But eventually, once you've got a couple of $1 million cash in your bank, having another 100,000 is not going to make you feel more comfortable. Yeah. It's not going to make you excited. It doesn't give you any satisfaction or reward. So what do you do when money doesn't motivate you anymore? I still to this day would never buy a brand label. It's not me. If it's over $50 for something that's clothing oriented, I'm not interested, you know? So I think that there becomes a point when you've got to find fulfillment in other things. My fulfillment now is vicariously live through the lives of the people I'm fortunate enough to be able to help.
And it's, I suppose for you as well, for me, one of my biggest drivers is leaving or trying to leave a legacy.
Yes.
And, you know, if you can look back on your deathbed in 70 or 80 years and say, well, there's 100 or 200 or 1,000 people out there who are, or their kids have lived a better life because I've been able to help them, as you say, achieve some sort of financial literacy or fulfillment, then, you know, what a way to be remembered.
The butterfly effect, right? One of my favourite movies, that you don't realise sometimes when you're having an impact on somebody, but it's actually the shift you make in them. What about the next 30 people they come into contact with, and the 30 people who come into contact with those 30 people? So I think this is a horrible time. I don't think we've ever lived through a more socially segregated time. I know we're running campaigns for All Lives Matter and Black Line, everybody's inclusive, but saying it and actioning it are two completely different things, right? So for me, I think darkness will never solve darkness, only light will. So my responsibility is just to shine my light as bright as I can, and anybody that decides to step out of the shadow, that's their choice. I can't force that upon people. I can only shine my light as bright as I possibly can. That's all.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's you know, that's amazing, mate. And like, it's really like, you know, Joseph, as I said, Joseph's here because, you know, he's a big fan, and I think everyone, you know, your mum, your dad, or who, you know, your family would be very proud of what you've achieved so far, and just that positive impact you're having on people's lives is truly amazing. For
sure. I think a piece of feedback for anybody who may be in the same or a similar position is, I used to really care about that. How proud my mother or father, brother or sister, employer, whoever. I used to always worry about how other people perceive me and how happy or proud other people were. So I remember clearly as anything, 19 years of age, I've just sold my solar power business. I've got $1 million. I'm a housing commission kid that's 19, that got kicked out of school a few years ago, and I got $1 million. So I decided I was going to go back to my high school, to my science teacher, Mrs. Price, who had kindly told me at the age of 14 that I was just like my father, and I would end him up in prison just like he did.
Right.
And I thought, wow, thank you for the feedback. I really appreciate it, Miss Price. So I went back to school, pockets full of money, you know, nice watch on,
nice
19. Clothes on, 19, ready to say to her, excuse me, Miss Price, just wondering, how's your Toyota Corolla running these days, right? Because it was the ego and the arrogance of a 19-year-old. When I told her what I had achieved, she said to me, I always believed in you, and I only said the things I did to motivate you.
Right.
Wow.
Right? That crushed me. Because I wanted to go and rub this in her face.
Yeah.
On that day, I decided no longer am I ever going to try and prove somebody else wrong. My mission in life is just to prove myself right. I understand my skill set, and as long as I'm fulfilling my own potential and I can look myself in the mirror and say, I gave this a red hot crack, I want my mother to be proud of me, but if she's not, that's her prerogative based on the expectations she had of me. I don't worry about what her expectations of me are. I worry about what my expectations of myself are. As long as I fulfill those, I'll sleep well.
Mate, amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that such in detail. And I mean, what we're going through in the world, as you said, is so unprecedented, so challenging on so many fronts. But let's talk about property and how that's going, and how your clients are, I suppose, perceiving what's going in the world from a property side of things, their confidence levels, their motivations. How are you finding the market in general in the purchases that you're working with?
Yeah, I think there's probably, it becomes quite a two-tone. So you have probably an 80-20 split. I think 80% of people who are typically a beta type character and or a follower will tend to now go into their shell, wait for the storm to pass and wait to be invited back out of that shell, you know? Whereas I think the other 20% now, who are possibly the more astute and in 30 years' time will definitely be the more affluent, are the ones that recognise that a down market creates the greatest opportunities, you know? So I've been promoting a little bit of the John F. Kennedy quote that the word crisis in Mandarin is represented by two symbols. Separate those symbols and they individually represent the words danger and opportunity.
Right.
So what is a crisis? It's a dangerous opportunity.
Right.
Are you focusing on the danger or the opportunity?
Right.
Yeah.
And that kind of reinforced to me that when through adversity, people will show their true colours. You know, I always talk about friendships, business partnerships, even your marriages. When things are going well, it's easy.
Yeah, things are good.
What happens when shit hits the fan? How committed is somebody then? How considerate is somebody then? And I think right now, in this moment, you're seeing those that are very individualistic, self-centered, ultimately in this game for themselves, their true colours are shining right now.
And they'll end up losing out.
I agree. In the end.
Yeah.
In the end.
Not right now, because I just don't think it's hit, but I think eventually it will.
Well, I think that relationships are everything ultimately, and right now they're choosing to abandon and or to deassemble their own relationships to be able to meet a short-term need. But what happens in 6 or 12 or 18 months' time when we hit our next growth market, but you've actually burned that bridge?
And mate, look, it's so true, because right now, like, it's funny, like there's a tsunami of buyer activity out there on the back of the incentives right now. So whilst, as you said, there's the 80-20 rule, and there's people who are a little bit more reclusive during this time. I tell you that first home buyers are definitely not reclusive at this stage. There are more first home buyers out in the market or owner occupiers than there ever has been, and then there is more stock. And so what you mentioned there is in terms of people taking, I suppose, a greedy approach. Already you're starting to see, land development prices from the same block 6 months ago up, build prices from some of our competitors we see, just to try and capitalise on, I suppose, the wave of activity.
Sure.
But ultimately they're going to lose in the end, because people like me and you that they've burnt their clients on previous to that, they may have had a block here, for instance, for 300, but next week it's 310. Well, I don't really want to work with you anymore, because it just shows me the side of character that doesn't really sit right with what I believe in.
Yeah.
So when the market, when they're looking for deals in 12 months or 2 years or whatever, I tell you I'm going to pick that person over him, because you've shown your colours.
For sure. And I think sometimes I go to that kind of acts of servitory. Right in that middle of COVID, valuations were a challenge.
Yeah.
No two ways about that. Anyone who says they weren't, I think, is not telling you the complete truth, right? Just for that 10-week period, probably last week of Feb to maybe third-ish week of April, somewhere in that little window, values were a real challenge. Now, that's when you rely on your partners, your builders, your developers to assist you, right? At the end of the day, we can let this deal fall over because it's $7,000 short of settlement, or why don't we have a look at the fact that I'm getting a few grand commission out of this, you're making a few grand profit out of this, why don't we work with this buyer to get something done? And those that were not willing to assist me at my hardest time, but when the market's extremely fruitful 2-3 years from now, and there's more demand than there is supply, and it's becoming competitive over blocks, I'm going to be very, very reluctant to send that work to you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And from the valuation standpoint, it's, I sort of understand where valuers are coming from in taking a conservative approach, because there still is, but even back then,
so much uncertainty.
Much uncertainty, and now like we're 3 months into this whole COVID thing, or 4 months in, or however long it is, 5 months probably now, but we sort of have an understanding of what it is and what it what can happen. Whereas in the middle of March, I know personally, I'm sitting there watching news thinking, holy fuck, what does this mean?
Rentals are at risk.
Young enough that I've never been in a recession. I'm thinking, I speak to my nan and grandparents, and they're talking recession about like you've got your hat on the street begging for bread, and in my head I'm thinking, shit, you've got to cut down. But I think now on the back of that, in terms of a property perspective, we haven't seen the arse fall out of the market. In actual fact, we've realised that the property and the construction industry and the real estate in general is such an imperative part of the nest egg of Australians in general that the government simply won't let it fail.
Completely agree. Three industries in this country that will never fail: construction, mining, banking. They will not allow that to happen. And I think we saw that with an immediate response in the incentives program.
Straight away.
I took advantage of it. I'm only going to live in the house for 1 year. I don't know if I'm supposed to be exposing all the tricks of the trade here, but I'm going to move into that house. I'm going to collect my grant. I'm going to live there for 12 months, half my capital gains tax, collect my $25,000, go back to the house I live in right now that I only moved into in March. What annoyed me was I finished a property on the February the 6th, and the incentive came out on March the 17th. I could have got 25 grand for the house I just built. But
I settled in Feb on my block too on a new one every time. But it's the same thing. It's never not just buy anyway. And that's what I've taken from it, and other clients is regardless of the time, even now when COVID happened, a lot of clients, like you said, 20% realised, well, we actually have nothing, honey. We're 35 years old. We've got nothing.
Yes.
COVID's hit. We still have nothing.
Yes.
We actually need to start doing something about our financial future. Yep. So the clients that have come through and the investors are like, no, I'm ready to go because I now know when things get hard, we've actually got nothing anyway. Yep. So I think there's a huge opportunity out there for that 20% of people out there going, all right, this is shaking me up enough to go, I'm going to change my future. Completely. That's what I take from it. That's what I feel like other people have as well. Yep. Work harder, do more, and actually be smarter and listen to professionals in their industry to change their, your future. So.
Absolutely. I always say to people, you don't go to your mechanic to get a light bulb changed.
Yeah.
So like if you aren't succeeding in the game of finance, then talk less and listen more. Like how many people, and I know you've been always been doing this a long time, you sit down with someone and they're telling you what's the right thing to do. And I'm like, but you don't have two washers to rub together. So if everything you're saying is true, where are the results of that information or knowledge or the actions that you're taking?
Exactly.
So I think we can all be a generation that feels undermined by truly admitting we don't know something. I think the day that you empower yourself to know it's okay not to know stuff, and you'll never know what you don't know, and it's actually the real gift that we're given in life is the ability to ask questions and be exposed to those that have an experience in this 100%. Space. It's why most of my closest friends are over 50. I know I'm only 29, but most of my closest friends are over 50 because I love tapping into their wealth of experience and knowledge as well,
And as we become more experts in our field, I've noticed just for me, I always, like any other field that I'm not sure of, I always go see a professional. I don't try and cut corners. I don't go any other way. I'm always going to see that professional in the field. Yeah, it just changes your thoughts on it.
You need to spend money to make money. So many people are so reluctant to let $1 leave their bank account. Like, I sat down and did like the T. Harv Eker and Jim Rohn, the Robert Kiyosaki's, and I kind of had that, what they call the swimming pool mentality. So my money was a swimming pool, right? I believed that having $1 million for someone like me, us, like kids like us don't make $1 million. So I had 1 million. And then like a swimming pool, a little bit of it would evaporate. It would usually evaporate on a good time. and then I'd top it back up. So I'd throw the hose in the pool, top it back up, and then I'd leave it for a few months.
On the defense.
A little bit of evaporate, top it back up. But I had a limited capacity to the amount of money I was ever going to have in my life because I had a swimming pool. And then they started to teach me about, it's like a river. Your finances should be like a river. They need to flow. And for it to flow, it means it needs to leave. Because if it doesn't leave, it will be unable to arrive. And even if it does arrive, but it's not leaving, it will flood. And a flood causes damage. Like, okay, so I've got to spend money to make money. I get it. I get it. How many times do footy teams go on the defensive and then concede 3 tries? Brisbane Broncos trying to close out the game against the Cronulla Sharks last week, right? That game was dead and buried. But because your only focus was not to concede, not to keep scoring, you lost the game.
Sharks were just, the only way to win is I'm going to keep scoring.
Right? So have that mentality. Be comfortable with letting capital leave your life. And sometimes, like, I don't mean going out and being frivolous, but I mean be willing to invest it. Be willing to put it into the market. Be willing to put it into assets, because ultimately the best thing that ever happened to me, or that can happen to me, is living broke. Like, I have to be asset rich and cash poor. The second you give me too much cash, I'm bone idle. I've got pockets full of cash. What do I need?
And when you sit down with the clients and assess, okay, you've got, this service might cost you $5,000 to learn a whole bunch, or go into the next investment property, by $50,000. No, we're going to buy 50. Like, I remember having a client, they had $180,000 in their account. He spent 120 on a brand new car, but he wasn't willing to spend the money on the investment property or a property to live in on his own, keep renting it. It's just like, this is a perfect example of you were just willing to blow money on other things, but when it comes to investing in yourself, you're not going to spend anything.
Buy the property with a higher equity position, use its cash flow positivity to pay off an novated lease that's done through a business structure so it's tax deductible, drive the same car at virtually no cost whilst your asset grows. But it's always easier said than done, right? Like, I watch, how often do you sit down with people that have got 10 grand, 20 grand credit card debt with 10 or 20 grand cash savings? Getting 0.8% on savings, paying 20% interest on a credit card. And I ask, why? Why do you do that? Why don't you pay off the credit? Oh, no, we need a bit of cash for a rainy day. I'm like, credit cards work when it's pissing down. You can be in the middle of a tornado, a cyclone, COVID. Credit cards work.
So you can get one straight away.
Whatever it was you were going to pay with that cash, just pay it on that same credit card instead,
And a lot of them don't even know that they're only getting 1% savings and that their credit card's 18% every month. They don't even know that.
No.
Crazy.
And they're just like, you tell them, you're like, oh, really?
Even my own, one of my groomsmen, one of my best friends, won't name him so he gets embarrassed by it, but he's he keeps a bunch of savings in a ANZ cash savings account at 0.68%. But he's got a 400 grand mortgage with a 100% offset account.
And
I'm trying to explain, obviously not mean to give all the simplistic details, but trying to just explain to him that this is net You cannot be charged tax on interest saved.
Yeah.
But you're getting 0.6% and giving 37.5% of that back. And still he looks at me like, yeah, but I've always used ANZ.
and it's crazy. It's like that same cash you can draw on, you can in your offset. There's no, if you're scared, you can pull from that money. Just keep it there. It's saving you It's the simple things like you mentioned. That's why seeing a group of professionals
For sure.
makes that huge. Insight. You're offering, you're giving your feedback on property, tax, you've got an accountant, you've got that right team. And already in that, if they're in a position of 10,000, you go and see them, they're not ready to buy today, but in 60 days or 90 days sometimes, it's that quick when they understand, we can do this. All you guys got to do is change these couple of items, pay out these cards, reduce your debt, sell that other car that's sitting in the driveway because you have 3.
And get all a mindset.
All of a sudden you can buy a property in 3 months. And I know when the stimulus package came out, I had clients from 3 years ago calling me, like, it's now my time to buy.
Yes.
All of a sudden I'm like, how do you still have my number? Like, the business doesn't exist. They're just calling the number. So they've got it saved on that rainy day.
Yes.
And all of a sudden it was like, let's go buy today. But it's amazing about when you're going, and like you said, you offer a free consultation. You go and meet with them and go, this is the strategy. This is what we can do. They're always going to come back because you actually gave them a way out of their problems today instead of sometimes charging a fee. It's sometimes hard because they're not even confident in spending money on themselves yet.
For sure.
So you're giving them that way out.
If you're listening to this and you are sales channels, and I say this with the utmost respect, but if I have little to no talents. The only thing I'm any good at is presenting products, building value in an opportunity from a features and benefits perspective, and sitting with a couple of $1 billion worth of sales experience. I think the biggest thing for a lot of people is that to charge them, say, a deposit, a professional services fee, it's a very good qualifier. You're going to get rid of anybody that was standing to potentially waste your time is now gone, right? Yeah. Which is great. But I also think you do scare away some genuine buyers. So we took the position instead to say, okay, we always will be a completely complementary business. We never will charge our clients 1 single cent. Yep. Let's charge the bank. I want my brokerage fee for that. Let's call it 0.7, 0.8% up front, 0.165% every year thereafter. I want insurances. I can make money there. Properties, buildings, land. I can make money there. So instead, why don't I offer a completely complementary service, win their trust, build a friendship, show them a pathway towards their own goals, and then ask them if they'd like me to hold their hand. If they would like me to hold their hand, would you pay me the respect of letting me introduce you to the Commonwealth Bank? Because they spend $32 million a year on TV, print and radio advertising to attract new customers. So they're going to be willing to pay me to attract you as a new customer. And I look at like the 37 lenders that I work with and the 130 building and development groups I work with, I have an identical commission with all of them. So whether I put you with Westpac or Suncorp or Commonwealth or ANZ is completely irrelevant to me. The financial reward to me is identical.
Which is important because then there's no,
There's no bias,
Well, if I get 1.4% from Commonwealth and 1% from Westpac, it's not going to take a real rocket scientist to see I write a lot of loans for Commonwealth Bank.
That's right.
So for me, it was about making sure that the business was based around a method that would allow me to only ever act in the best interest of the customer because the reward for me is identical. So, I think reducing barriers to entry increases economy of scale. And for us, we went from being a business that did, let's call it 3 million a month to being more like about 8 million a month right now because of the fact that we changed from having a $2,200 professional services fee to eliminating that. And yes, you do attract waste. Yes, there is waste in the process, but I guess at the be all and end all, it's the honey left in the pot at the end that you will judge yourself on, right?
Is it worth,
If that's there, then you might have to kiss a few frogs to find a princess, but that's part of this too, right? That's part of this game. And I think sometimes salespeople can be guilty of only wanting to cherry pick from the top of the pile.
And sometimes not following their own process, like, there might be a time waster, so I'm going to take this little shortcut in our own internal process. You'll never get the deal because you've missed how they're feeling, what you normally train them on. You've missed. It never works. A lot of the guys that we work with that start off really well and it's like, let's just see how they go.
Yes.
Next minute, 2 years later, it's like, I didn't go anywhere with that client. I sent everything over online and I didn't meet with him. It's like, process, why are you doing that? I remember with me and Hayden, I would drive 3 hours sometimes just to meet with them, face to face, sit down with them. They might not be ready to buy today. Yes, they might be wasting my time as well, but I'm going to meet with them. And a lot of the time, their brother or their sister or a family member would actually buy and go, that guy had the right advice.
Yes.
I'm not probably willing to take that on board or listen to it, but what he said is the next minute someone's buying from me anyway. But I just took the opportunity, like you said, everything's free. I'm going to come out and just meet with you.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about everything and just work it out. And I know, always through tough times like now, they're your referral groups as well. They're your referral clients that come back and purchase off you in tough times.
100%. And it's you never know who the customer is. If you think you can pick them, I'm telling you, you can't. I've trained 250,000 salespeople across every single continent in this country. When you go, they're a dead set deal. They're 100% going ahead. They won't. And when you go, I think he might be just wasting my time, they're keen as a bean to get going.
Yeah.
So I think repetition and discipline around that repetition leads to elite performance. Like you go and look at a Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods never knew what hole he was on. He never knew what score.
Right.
He never knew what score he was on. Never paid attention. Right. Never wanted to. You know, it's just this shot. It doesn't matter does it matter if I'm first or 10th? What matters is I'm 160 meters out with a westerly wind, so I need to take a fort. Like, you know, it's play every single shot on its merit. Why did Kobe Bryant have to make 100 free throws before he would leave? Because repetition builds familiarity. Familiarity grows confidence and muscle memory in your moments of insecurity, moments of doubt, or moments where you're acting in a subconscious, not a conscious manner. You will revert back to only what you know best. What you know best is what you've practiced most. So that offends me with my team when they say, because he was 60 or because he is Indian or because he lives in this place or because he's only got this much, I did it this way.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
This is the process that's proven to work. Just
if I'm tall, short, fat, thin, black, white, orange or yellow, ordering one burger or 100, McDonald's only knows one way to serve me. And there's a reason there's more McDonald's than there is any other food store in the world. And they run successfully 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yep.
Create a system, trust it. Stick to it.
Yeah. And that's a big key.
And with this, I mean, we don't specialise in self-managed super fund property. So we're two-part contract, house and land residential builder. But I tell you, the phone and the inquiry for people to do self-managed super fund has been spectacular during this time. And I think I was chatting to Tom about this in the early stages. I think maybe because people may have their super in shares and all that sort of stuff, and they're looking at property and the way it's held and just being consistent. Have you noticed any sort of trend in the self-managed super fund or the super fund space in general across your clients?
Almost accidentally, it's become pretty much all I do.
Right.
So of my last 50 sales, 47 of those have been self-managed superannuation fund purchases. Right. It now represents in total about 86% of every sale we make is to a super fund. So definitely seeing a trend in that direction, for sure. Feb 21 or Feb 20 to March 21, we have a 36.3% decline of the stock market, right? Yeah. Like many people, I was a couple of $100,000 exposed to it, and you sit there and you think, it's non-tangible. I can't see it. I can't touch it. I don't feel like I had any control over it. And whilst it gradually and incrementally grows, unless you're invested in After or Zip Pay, but it gradually and incrementally grows, but then when it crashes, it falls off the end of a cliff.
Yeah.
And that's 7 up, 2 down. You know, I've got to spend 2 down. I've got to spend 7 recovering hereafter. I think people begin to lose faith. The biggest customer base that I'm getting at the moment, I average about 35 inbound inquiries a day through my digital marketing. Don't have a call center, don't do any outbound contact whatsoever. Everything is done through Google and Facebook, Facebook, Instagram. And the biggest client base at the moment is people who have been salary sacrificing. So they've been putting $50, $100 of their own hard-earned spondoolers into their super every single week. And then not only did they lose everything they've contributed, but they lost more than that. You know, I had $200,000 and now I've got 160. What the fuck? You know, what's the go with this?
Yeah.
Whereas they go, but my house I bought 10 years ago has grown by 60%. So I think that's going to be a better return. And then you start to talk about the power of leveraging. You know, you borrow money through SMSF at 6%, you're getting 5% rent, 7% capital growth. You know, you're not only profiting from your own super, but you're actually experiencing growth from money that was never yours. Access to early retirement, lower fees, lower taxes. And I think because I created the allied service where underneath the one roof, I have the accountant, I have the auditor, I have the solicitor, I have the mortgage broker, I have the insurance broker, I have the financial planner, I have the property manager, and I have the real estate agent all under the one roof. I think becoming that one-stop shop meant that people felt a lot more comfortable to say, so all I've got to deal with is you guys, and you're going to work this out front to back. And so there's been a huge upturn. The biggest challenge, right, is finding stock for those people. So got so fed up of trying to find stock that I just bought 40% of a building company and started building my own instead. So got a 9 or 10 right now that and I need to keep picking that up because the demand's there. But just decided if I couldn't find what I was looking for, just create it.
Yeah, right. And that's, I mean, you made a really important thing there about the one-stop shop and having all of those, I suppose, services under the one roof, because it's like a big bike chain, you know, the whole process. If one of those links, no matter how good the other 99 links are, if one of those fails, they're all rat shit.
Yeah, namely your mortgage broker.
Yeah, that's right.
The pressure.
Get the right finance partner. Get the right and a solicitor, I'd say. You know, two major critical components in there.
And they're the critical, absolutely. But they're also, like, a lot of the time we had last week, Andrew and Mitch from Action Realty, and they have a property management organisation. And even that down to the end, I suppose, service, because that's going to ultimately, no matter how good the construction or no matter how good the whole process is, if they have a bad experience right at the end with their property management or their handover or whatnot, it leaves that sour taste. So even whilst it may not be as important to the obtaining the property itself, in terms of the overall experience,
for sure,
it makes such a huge difference to have that entire team on the same level, aligned with your mission, with your purpose,
absolutely,
with what you believe in as an individual, but also what your company ethics and morals are.
For sure, and you're all a reflection of each other, right? Like if I assist a customer to purchase a pivotal home, and it's low quality completion, there's defects, you don't meet, you gave me an 18-month fixed term bill contract, you don't match that, whatever it may be. You're just a direct reflection of me, because they actually are not really judging you. They could give or take you. It's irrelevant. I didn't commit to these people. I committed to you, Jack. You told me they were the right people to go with. So I think you get almost a deferred liability when you recommend, and that's why for anybody who is getting into this space at all or looking to scale up in this space, I would say kind of think slow and act fast. Like, take your time to find the right partner. Don't just jump at the best opportunity. And make sure they're aligned ultimately with your ethics, your morals, you know, your vision, your mission, your values, and just make sure that they're not the type of person that's just going to do what's got to be done to get it done. Because, you know, we were talking off air before this that you could have 1,000 customers that you've done everything right for. You get one that you do wrong by, house of cards will fall over.
Absolutely.
You know? And it's the hardest thing in the game of property sales because it's a big ticket item, right? Let's say you're selling $1 million home and you're on a 3.3% REIQ standard commission, right? For argument's sake, there's $33,000 on the line here. That's a bloody good chunk of dough, you know? And then all of a sudden, you've got something that pops up where you think, oh, maybe this isn't quite ethical, or I shouldn't be doing it. But greed will get the better of the best of men or women, you know? So I think being able to have very definite non-negotiables, I will not step over those boundaries. And the second that a customer's asking you to do that, you have to be brave enough to say, thank you. I respect the fact you will go and buy a home, but unfortunately I'm not the provider to assist you.
We were actually talking about this earlier with one of Hayden's groups he's worked with for many years now. And a client wanted to buy it. I want to buy now. They've already bought one through him. They wanted to buy again, but they didn't have the price point, and he couldn't offer the product that works.
Yes. And
he said, I'm not right for you. I'm not going to be able to give you it's not going to work, basically.
I can't stand behind it.
I can jam you into a little townie out the arse end of nowhere with high body corp that's going to be completely cash flow negative and won't grow for the next 10 years. I mean, I can do that. And I'm going to get paid for doing that. But I think we've also got to look I think on the Gold Coast as well, that we already come with a bit of a reputation. Right?
It's hard,
We're already the next generation after the notorious White Shoe Brigade.
That's right.
And I think
Flash is a rat with gold teeth.
That we above anything have to be even squeakier clean in how we do things, because we're starting behind the 8 ball anyway. So, and I think more than ever now, digital world, super connected, you know, and so much access to information that I think we've got the most educated consumer generation that's ever existed. So
if you've got anything in your background to find, you'll be finding it. You know, like,
that's right.
And I'm just lucky I've never have any outrageous sex tapes.
Mine was probably I was the first generation of Facebook users, right? Like Facebook came out when I was 14, 15. We were on MySpace or the likes before that.
Yeah.
So some of my images and whatnot will date back from a younger time. But maybe I didn't think I was going to be in a professional role. Maybe. So dyeing your hair green.
Oh, mate.
It might
Yeah,
have been
I've got my MySpace is still up there, and I'm with a photo of bloody aviators, and I'm like this, you know. It's just like, God, how the fuck do I get this down?
You've actually got an old YouTube account that he can't delete or access, and he's got one half blonde bleached and the other one black, and he's, I think you were like 15 singing.
Yeah, I'm singing on there with my guitar.
Hell of a
Can't
singer,
delete
mate.
it. Pardon?
Hell of a singer.
Great singer. He went through a goth stage.
I also think sometimes you can either hide things, or you can either be proactive or reactive with that information, right? When there's certain information online, I can wait for you to find it and then allow you to take your own depiction from it.
Yeah.
Or why don't I actually just get the white elephant out, put it on the table, let's all have a laugh about it like we just did there.
Yeah.
And then when you do stumble across it,
He's already aired it.
That's right.
I've already accepted you for that.
Yeah.
You know? So I just would really bang on and say that not only from a customer perspective, if you listen to this for guidance and advice as well, that transparency is the key to success. So if you're not transparent with us as your specialists, then the advice we're going to give you may not be truly tailored to your need, because you know the omission of any relevant information affects my advice. But on the same point with us as well, as representatives of the industry, stop only telling them what they need to hear, because the idea that you'll deal with the problem when it arises, or that no news is good news. That's the number one way to offend me. If no news is good news is a crock of shit. No news means no referrals. Referrals are the number one driver in this industry. So if your customer isn't ringing you, they're not sending you more customers. So that's a problem. So don't just sit, and I always think, don't take the call. Like I look sometimes through my customer list, and obviously now it's gone from being a few to a few thousand, and you look through and you think, okay, who haven't I spoken with?
Yeah.
Just drop a check in. It doesn't have to have any purpose. Just non-relevant communication. G'day, mate. Praying for you all there in Melbourne. Leave it.
It's huge. It's huge for them.
They just know that I'm here. And often what they might come back with is, oh, mate, thank you so much for your kind words. Was meaning to ask you. And then they ask you that question that they've had in the back of their mind for ages. And I've been telling their mates that, they're a good company, but their communication's poor. I've had this problem I've been waiting to deal with for months, but I haven't heard from them.
Well, they sold us the property. We handed it over. It went to a property manager, and that was the last communication we had.
Pump and dump.
It's and like I found a lot of the clients as well, and when they're going to make their referrals, not until the place is tenanted, someone's living in there, they're receiving their first couple of weeks rent and go, Jack, this actually worked. 100%. We built our home. Now we're in it. Now it's working. This actually works. See, guys, I told you this would work. You need to go. And that's how the, referring your friends, because they actually want to see it. They actually want to see that it happens. And I feel like a lot of the time, unfortunately, you have groups that just do the sale, settlement happens. Hey, Tom and Hayden, the builders, can you just take care of them after that? And it's just like, look, they're my client. I'm going to look after them and do the right thing. But unfortunately, you're just going to miss out. Because then what happens in 12 months' time?
Me back. They're going to become my customer.
And that's and they would do that. It's like, okay, I can't do that. You need to give them a call back or go to someone else. And then, and I had it the other day, actually. I had a client that we sold property to 2 years ago. That company doesn't exist anymore. They come through another property, a company. And it's just like, it's a perfect example. They weren't looked after. That company couldn't survive because they didn't look after referrals. It's huge. And it's,
I always say it's a long road to an 8-figure business, which I think we're all in this to run 10 to $100 million companies, right? To grow an 8-figure business is virtually impossible if every customer is buying from you for the first time. To get to 10 mil where every single transaction is with a customer for the first time, the marketing spend to get to that would just be nuts. You look at my business, I've got nearly 70% of my sales come by way of referral, and therefore, yes, I do invest heavily in the acquisition of clients through my marketing, but I can then divide that against the gross total of sales that I'm going to make over that year, because I live by the philosophy every customer equals 2.4 properties sold. And when you have that mentality that it's not about how much can I eat from you today. That's like tip-ins, right? Like I've had to tip back to a client my entire commission on a sale, and actually more. There was a lovely lady, Lebanese lady, 60 years of age, from Melbourne, one of absolutely God's children. She just, second I met her, she just warmed my spirit. And I not only needed to give my entire commission, I actually had to put $1,000 out of my own pocket to get that deal done.
Wow.
Most people wouldn't have done that.
No.
I got 6 referrals, settled referrals.
Yeah, wow.
6 from her. I've gone on and made myself 6 figures off that lady because I decided do what was ultimately right to start with.
Mm.
And if I'd have thought she was only one sale, I wouldn't have done it.
Mm.
But I knew she was 2.4.
Mm.
And therefore, I was like, hey, I'll lose the first one because I'm still going to get the 1.4 that are behind them.
Yep.
And so with, you said you've gone from a list of a couple of clients to thousands of clients. Obviously that comes, there's only so many hours in the day,
Yes.
right? So there's only so much Jack Corbett can do.
Yes.
So what have you implemented on, I suppose, the back end side of things with your team to, I suppose, have another channel to information or a channel to, just pick up the phone and, during COVID or whatever, they might be thinking, hey, what's your take on it? You obviously got some back end mechanisms in place as well when arguably your phone, you can't answer your phone right now. So you got implementation systems in the back end to also help your clients?
For sure, yeah. I'm the least talented person in the business.
Yeah,
I'm the mouthpiece. Really. We always say I'm underworked and overpaid is the joke in our office. But 3 levels to me. It's people, process, performance, right? And I think so many businesses do that arse backwards. The first thing they want to know is, right, Hayden and Tom, how many sales you got? So it's performance first. Let's worry purely about the performance. If the performance isn't right, change the process. And after you've changed the process, force the people to adhere to it.
Yeah.
Now those people don't connect with the process. So now they don't follow it. Therefore, not only not creating performance, but actually diminishing the original underperforming state that they were in to begin with. So for me, automation first. Never have a human do something a computer can do for them. So that's really important for me, is to have recency and frequency, automated communications by text and email. So you purchase a property from me, you settle today.
Yep.
Exactly 160 days from today, you will be invited to have your 6th month review, where we do a portfolio review, revalue the home, assess the loan that you're on, assess the rent that you're receiving, and make sure you're not over or under insured. And I give every one of my clients 2 complimentary sessions a year. Right? In that fashion. But on the other side is also trusting and empowering your partners, right? I don't need to do my accountant's job. I don't need to do depreciation reports. He's assigned that responsibility. So I very much view myself as a head chef. I have not cooked one single piece of steak this year, but I have reviewed 1,300 plates before they went onto one of my customers' tables.
Yeah, right.
When you are only quality assuring the work that is being completed by your team, you'll realise there's far less to do.
Yeah.
Especially if as you said, it's people. You've got the best team is.
Pay them right. My staff are on 130 to 150 grand a year. 100, well, probably shouldn't. I hope none of them listen to this. The top one just got 162. She just got a little pay rise. But I pay my staff well.
Yeah.
When you pay the right money, you attract the right people. When you're paying somebody what they're ultimately worth, they're willing to go above and beyond for the organisation that is their employer. So I, for too long, was this, give them 40 to 50 grand base, make them fucking struggle, because then they'll be desperate to make sales.
Yeah.
I mean, in concept, that makes sense, right? That if you're hungry, you will hunt. Because if I was hungry and I had no food, I would beg, steal, or borrow somebody else's. Do you get where I'm coming from? So I get that. But the mental instability and the scoreboard pressure that it creates gets inflicted on the client, which actually forces the sale away from them. Yeah. So instead, I say to my team, hey, let's work this out. How many sales did you get last year? I got 36. Brilliant. Well, I'm going to pay you in advance 36 commissions this year. I'm going to load it on top of your base pay. So your new base is now base plus 36 sales. Let's just pay it you every single month. But you just owe me 3 sales every month.
Yeah, right.
And now when that person's got 4 grand, whatever, every week hitting their account, there is no pressure. And
their chest is out, the shoulders are back, and they're walking around swinging their arms. And
it's the basic fundamentals in sales that try and put 2 ends of a magnet together that are the same end. Try and force them, they just repel. What you need to do is to turn your magnet around and be an attraction device that if you're a positive, it lets all the negatives combine with you. Do you know? So,
and you can see that from when a person comes in desperate for the sale, that's when they miss out on the sale.
You can sense
that's
it.
Huge,
100%.
So let's talk cash flow and let's talk capital growth. Where does that sit in terms of, is there one for you that's more important? Is it about having a balance of the two across your portfolio? What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a really, really fair question. I guess I'm probably in the process of doing that for myself, because the short-term focus and what makes people feel most comfortable is always a cash flow, right?
Yeah.
You go and get a dual lock, a duplex, something that's 5.3 to 5.5% rental yield or greater, and everybody feels good. This isn't costing me anything. That's all well and good that it's not costing you anything, but nobody in the history of property got rich off rent. You get rich off of appreciation. So for me, you do have to have a healthy balance, right? There's no point having cash flow negative properties that are putting a unnecessary amount of pressure on your day-to-day living. But I mean, for me, the ideal portfolio, textbook portfolio, 4 properties, right? You live in one, you got 3 rentals, one's your income, one's your wife's income, 4th one pays the tax on the income of the other 2, right? Your bog standard typical portfolio. Within that, your owner occupier is the only one I'd have any emotional attachment to. You know, love where you live, have pride every time you wake up or come home to that property. Then I would aim outside of that to eliminate all my emotion from my selection, make it a purely logical thing, and I would probably find that what I've got is one cash flow property. That's my one that's spinning the wheel and making sure bills are paid on the front end. But then the other 2, I would focus more so on having high growth properties that have the greatest probability of, like, our magic number is we're looking for 70% in approximately 12 years. If we can get you to purchase a 500,000 house, that's going to be $850,000 in 12 years' time, and it's going to have rented at roughly a 4.7% rental yield or a cost-neutral rental yield that entire time. Very content with that type of property. So I think a healthy balance is important, but if in doubt, as long as having a growth property doesn't put unnecessary cash flow pressure on your day-to-day living, I would personally always focus on growth or equity as opposed to just high-yielding properties.
And 7% isn't an outlandish number. It's not one of those double your money in 2 year type, you know, scenarios. 7%, 7% is very, very achievable, really, isn't it?
For sure. I look at it and go 70% over 12 years is roughly 5% compounded. Picking the right area. I mean, the national average is 6.8 over the last 25 years. So I'm not being outlandish with that. But I also do strongly believe this will be the slowest property cycle in Australian history, where we generally double every 12.4. I believe this one will be closer to a 17-year cycle. So it's also the realism for people. Salespeople make the biggest mistake salespeople make is thinking they need to over-glamorize or over-promise something for people to want to buy it. I made a real sharp stance. What I was going to do is take the reality of the situation. So, like, you know, as the property marketer, that's going to get 450 in rent. You say 470 because it makes the numbers look better. And then when it's 450, there's this market condition that caused it to be 450.
There's more available.
So basically, you're full of shit.
Right? Absolutely.
But it made your sale better. I took a different stance to that. I'm going to take whatever the reality of the situation is, and I'm going to take 15% off.
Great.
So if I'm going to get 450, I'm going to tell them, let's work all of these numbers on 400. Because if you love it at 400, I'll blow you away at 450.
That's right.
So and again, salespeople will tell you under-promise and over-deliver. Saying it and doing it are 2 different things. And I'm not saying do it because it's the right thing to do for your customer. I'm saying doing it because it makes more fucking sales.
That's right.
Right? Like, if I come to you right now and say, Tom, you come and train with me and I'll have you at 6% body fat by the end of the month.
I'll take it up.
But when you go home after signing up, what are you thinking? Do you believe that that's possible?
Well, then you start doubting, is it really going to happen that quick?
And when I get you to 8.5% body fat at the end of that month, are you happy or sad? Have you achieved or have you missed your target? Do you know what I mean? So now there's an inherent level of disappointment with what was a great outcome.
8.5.
If I think I can get you to 8.5, let me make a promise to get you to 10. Because if I said 10 and I got you to 8.5, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. And every single one of your friends or family members is going to contact me. So
could you get me to 8.5?
Underselling. I could talk about push and pull selling. Push selling is a dying art. The more you tell a customer to take their time, my number one thing I say to customers now is no matter how excited you are at the end of this conversation, I will not allow you to do this today. Whereas what we were taught 10 years ago is never leave the house without the contract, right?
You don't take it now, it's not going to be available tomorrow, let me tell you.
If you leave without the contract, they'll never buy from you. Don't even go to the toilet if you need a wee because they'll conspire how to get rid of you. That's right. I
wear a nappy when I go.
I'll walk in and tell you, no matter how excited you get today, you will not be able to make a decision in this conversation. Two reasons. Number one, I will never ask a customer to act on impulse. Every decision I have ever made in my life where I acted on impulse, or every decision in my life I've ever made that I've regretted, I notice I made it as an impulse decision. So that's number one. Number two, I'm not going anywhere, you're not going anywhere, and the opportunity's not going anywhere.
Yep.
I tell people up front, I do not work on time frames. No BS is going to leave my mouth. I'm not going to tell you, if you don't do it today, the government might change their policies. Or there's only one lot left. If there's only one lot left, let it go. Good opportunities are like London buses. They come every 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes. And if you'll miss some. I've missed plenty. But you will catch the next. So I say to them, let me leave you with this. If you wake up in the morning and your gut tells you that you should be doing this, send me a thumbs up text message with a day and a time that suits, and it'll be my absolute honour to hold your hand and go through the process.
Right. And that's the actual process. You actually send the thumbs up? Yeah, right.
So this morning, pretty much the last text message I have received, what does the very top of that say?
Hi, Jack. Thank you for your time today. We would like to go ahead. There you go.
With a thumbs up.
We'll blow that number out, can you? Next thing you know, there's every man and his dog trying to sell property to these poor people.
I have a 70% conversion rate against telling them to take their time.
Yeah, right.
When I tell them to take their time and they come back to me 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years later and say, Jack, we've decided to do it, I have a 94% conversion rate.
Yeah.
So the deal's done now. That gentleman is buying a home from me.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about that. I only spoke to him yesterday. I spoke to him at 7:30 p.m. yesterday.
Yeah, right.
He said to me, great, mate, so what's the next steps? I said, the next step is for you to sleep on this.
Yeah. And there must be like the almost deer in headlights, like, what? I've never, what? You know, that's...
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That doesn't want to take my money.
Yeah.
And I've had people say, no, mate, like, I can tell you that tomorrow morning I'm going to send you a thumbs up text message. I said, great, I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, right.
Well, do you want to, like, just secure a time now? I'm like, you think of the time now, and when you send me the text in the morning, put the time in there.
Yeah, right.
And it baffles people.
Yeah.
This is a very congested market, right? Not just for obvious reasons. It's a very fruitful market, right?
Yeah.
But there's another 25 of where you came from. Most people are going to speak to 3 to 5 of you. They won't always tell you that. You might think you're the only, horse at the race, but there's probably several more. We're all offering the same service. We're all offering the same product. We're all presenting the same knowledge. We're all winding back the clock and saying, this is the power of compounding interest. If you're the same person offering the same thing, you've got Parkridge, I've got Parkridge. You've got Shoreline Redland Bay, I've got Shoreline Redland Bay. So what are you offering I'm not? You know?
Yep.
You use Pivotal Homes, I've got Pivotal Homes. I've got Metricon, I've got Ingenieur, I've got these properties. So what makes us different?
That's right.
It's dealing with me as the human being. And the difference you get with me is I'm going to give you an ample opportunity to make your mind up. And after you've made your mind up, I want you at that point, because a lot SMSF, right? Let's do a bank application. Doesn't cost you anything. There's no commitment. But that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard in my life. Why do an application with somebody on the premise that if they get accepted, they don't have, there's no commitment?
Yeah,
why don't we instead take the time before I do the paperwork, before you give me your pay slips and bank statements, to decide that if I get accepted, I will proceed.
Yeah.
And then call me.
Yep.
And I'll help you.
Yep.
It's this idea of losing sales. You can never lose something you didn't have. So stop worrying about if I do that or say that, I'll lose the sale. You'll recognise it's real, and transparency will always win in the end.
Yeah, mate, that's amazing. And I think there's no better way to end on that note. And I mean, from me, it's been an eye opener, and your energy, and you can tell your passion. I'm sure everyone watching there is going to be really inspired about your story, but also be really motivated. And there's some really good fire there that you dropped, mate. So thanks so much for coming and talking everything property.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate it. And all I'd say in closing is just remember, guys, that hard work will always outweigh talent. You can outlearn your way. You can learn your way out of poverty is what I'm trying to suggest. I grew up in poverty, and I don't mean that for a boohoo me, but I grew up in a household where we didn't have, for certain days, electricity because we couldn't pay the bill. So just remember, you can outlearn your way out of poverty, and ultimately, I possess no skills. I just possess a burning desire and a work ethic that most people are not willing to match. So if you're out there and you're umming and ahhing whether you have the capability of doing this, I think confidence breeds competence. So back yourself and give it a red hot crack.
Yep, 100%.
Jack, thanks so much. And everyone watching at home, Jack Corbett, Corbwood Associates is the company, mate. How do they get in contact?
Yeah, just www.corbwood.com.au, or on your social medias, it's just Corbwood Associates.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. All right, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Again, Jack Corbett from Corbwood Associates.
Thanks
very much.